This is a steal for the Los Angeles Lakers as a wild new rumor and report has dropped surrounding one player in particular that has fans very intrigued. We're going to break down what these reports are as it pertains to a trade. We also have multiple updates, including LeBron James's big decision coming to light as the truth has been leaked. A ton to go over today, but before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage, you aren't subscribed to the channel, quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. The regular season is just around the corner, and if you are enjoying the daily content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Folks, a lot to go over today, and obviously we're now just a couple weeks, about 3 weeks away from the beginning of the regular season, a bit under that, and what that means is reports, rumors, all these things are going to start to re-emerge, especially as we see how this Lakers team begins their season into the trade deadline. But I want to cover something that has dropped and has gained a lot of traction over the last few days and even into today. So you can see this here. An article dropped. Lakers urged a trade for a 12-point per game scoring big man and an ex-Luka Doncic teammate, and it is Daniel Gafford. Now, I'm going to dive into this, and I'm very curious to see what your guys' thoughts are. I've covered him on the channel before, but it has reemerged as a potential option. We know the Mavericks got Anthony Davis in the Luka Doncic trade, but there's been some interesting rumors lately surrounding the Lakers pursuing Gafford, saying that he would be an ambitious trade target for Los Angeles. Gafford brings experience playing alongside Luka Doncic with the Dallas Mavericks and averaged 12 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks a game, while making about 70% of his shots last season. He'd be a backup to Ayton with the Lakers, but should still get a heavy workload and will be a big upgrade over Jackson Hayes. And I'm going to dive into some new reports that have dropped surrounding what an actual package would look like as it pertains to coming back to the Mavericks in this deal. But the reason I find it interesting is because there's been a few different articles that have talked about this now. And obviously the Lakers have DeAndre Ayton and they have Jackson Hayes. And I'm still a little bit skeptical, about what DeAndre Ayton's going to look like. We'll have to see. He had a pretty rough preseason game offensively, but I do think ultimately he will come around and he'll be a very solid big man. However, when you're looking at it from the perspective of the Lakers now, would they be willing to give up assets to upgrade in the big man spot? I think at the surface, Gafford would be a massive upgrade. And he's used to playing off of the bench. He's used to playing alongside Luka Doncic. And I believe that Doncic even said that he would be someone that could be a pretty interesting fit. I'm sure they've spoken about it internally. But again, there's a lot of question marks surrounding the Lakers, specifically in their front court. Now, Ayton, like I just mentioned, he's the biggest question mark. He could be really good. He could have a down year. We'll have to see what happens with that. But we know for a fact what Gafford would bring. He's more of a surefire thing than any of the big men the Lakers have right now. Pretty good defender, very good rebounder, and the Lakers do have, in theory, the assets to make the deal happen, but do they want to give up assets for a front court player when, in theory, they still need a backcourt guy, a defender, an Andrew Wiggins type? But again, that seems to have been put to the back burner a little bit. So that's where this question, remains here. And there was another article that dropped, and there's been a lot of speculation about this, and that's why, of course, I'm covering it, from Tyler Watts of the Lake Show Life, and he's put together a no-brainer trade idea that involves Daniel Gafford, but he thinks that the Mavericks will decline. This is where the steal portion comes. So this is Gafford to LA in exchange for Gabe Vincent, a swap in 2026, and, of course, their highly valued 2031 first-round pick. On the surface, it seems like a good deal for the Lakers. For the Mavericks, it looks like a disaster in the making. Now, I honestly don't know if the Lakers would be willing to give up their 2031 first for Daniel Gafford. I think for a deal like this, they'd have to see how the season plays out. I don't think this is a deal that's going to happen before the season starts. It could, bearing disaster in the the preseason with Ayton. If they don't think that would work out, I mean, Gafford can start. He can be a bench player. He would add some much needed depth to this team, and I'm not entirely sold yet on Jackson Hayes, being a very viable. I mean, he's a fine backup center, but is he a backup center on a championship caliber team? That's the question. We know he's had some good years in the past with the Lakers, with, of course, the Pelicans, I believe it was, where he started and got drafted from, but he has been working on his three-point shot all year. Gafford is coming off one of his best seasons and signed that 3-year, $54 million deal. Now, at the time of that signing, a lot of people are like, okay, the dream is over for the Lakers. However, something to keep in mind is he gets more value in a trade by signing that extension. And he signed a 3-year, $54 million one, which is pretty good value for him. But again, he started 66 games last year. And when the Lakers made the championship there a few years ago, he was, of course, on the bench for some of those games. You can look at it here. Last year with the Dallas Mavericks, 57 games played, 31 games started, averaged 12 points. The year the Lakers made, or the Mavericks made the championship back in 2023-2024, before the Luka trade, when Luka was on the team, he started 29 of 21 games that he played with the Mavericks. He was, of course, acquired at the trade deadline by the Mavericks from the Wizards, and they also, I believe, acquired PJ Washington at that trade deadline from the from the Charlotte Hornets. So PJ Washington's been another name that's been thrown around, but you can look at how consistent he's been. He's been a very good rebounder throughout his career, and this is all in limited minutes. He's never touched over 26 and a half minutes a game, and when he did have his career high in minutes, it was with the Washington Wizards, a very poor team. So it is interesting. And the Mavericks would get 2 picks and, Gabe Vincent. Now, I don't think Gabe Vincent's super useful. That being said, it would be a stopgap playmaker for Dallas while Kyrie gets healthy. They could probably try to get more, but again, that 2031 unprotected first could be a very, very unique, deal. Now, you could, there's 3 team deals. This one also includes, I believe, the Nets, I think, and the Heat. There's a lot of different ways that this can go. But for the Lakers, he would be and would provide some comfort, some familiarity for Luka, a bit more of a surefire thing, especially as you look at, what this team needs, which is depth to a degree, and of course, just having some sort of, continuity here, because this team is vastly different than last year. Now you have Luka, Reaves, Rui, and LeBron. Those 4 remain the same, and according to all reports, Rui's probably going to be the starter. You added Marcus Smart, you added Jake LaRavia, you added, of course, some other guys as well, and you brought back Jackson Hayes, rather. This is where things become interesting. Now, if you add, of course, Daniel Gafford to this, he would be the backup center. It would move Jackson Hayes down. What does that mean for, Maxi Kleber and things like that? Let me know down below what your thoughts are. I think if you can get him for really cheap, it's a steal. Otherwise, I don't know if it's worth giving up a ton of assets for him because of the fact you already have DeAndre Ayton and Jackson Hayes. But if Rob Pelinka thinks this is the time to go all in and make a move happen, you have a couple weeks before the season to do so. Now, before we wrap up, let's dive into the announcement that happened today. Now, of course, LeBron posted that he had a big announcement today at noon Eastern, and everyone thought that it was going to be him retiring after this year because, of course, the NBA season is just around the corner. Tickets for the last game of the year skyrocketed into the hundreds from $40, something crazy. Ultimately, that wasn't the case. You can see here, breaking, LeBron is not retiring from the NBA. Rumors began to circulate after James posted a video titled The Second Decision, but it turned out to be an ad. An ad for what? We all thought it was going to be Amazon Prime Day. It was actually Hennessy, which is pretty funny. The decision has been made. Cheers year 23. LeBron James is partnering with Hennessy, so that's the big advertisement there. It wasn't him retiring. It wasn't anything else. It was just that, which I'm sure some fans are mad about. Ones who paid $800 for the final game of the year. Now, it could be LeBron's final game of the year then. It could be his last year, but that's not publicly announced yet, and he really played into it here. The second decision. Of course, the first one was choosing the Miami Heat instead of the Cleveland Cavaliers back in that summer in early 2010. It is what it is, right? It's let me know down below if one of you guys spent money on those tickets. Hennessy ad, which is pretty ironic and pretty funny, but that'll wrap it up. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on this, and of course, the steal of a deal that would be Daniel Gafford if you can get him for cheap. Do you want him? Do you think they should just ride out with who they have? Let me know down below. You guys have been an absolute beast of support. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in the next video.